Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for Monday's edition of Alaska Weather on this 11th day of October 2021. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first on the hazardous weather graphics, we've got winter weather advisory out for the eastern interior, and that's out for tonight through tomorrow for several inches of snow at the higher elevations. Heaviest expected between Tannen Cross and Northway along the Alaska Highway, and that's out again tonight through tomorrow. And then also a winter weather advisory out for the eastern Alaska Range for snow and blowing snow through the passes, gusty winds up to 30 miles an hour, creating visibilities half mile or less at times, and also several inches of snow expected there. Down south there, red illuminated areas show high wind warnings or represent high wind warnings out for Sitka, Prince of Wales Island, and areas of the southern interior or southern panhandle there from Dixon Entrance. That's out for tonight until 3 a.m. Tuesday morning, and that feels like Sunday to me. But that's for winds gusting to 60 miles an hour with the incoming storm currently start kicking the winds up along the coast currently. And again, sustained winds 25 to 35 miles an hour, gusts 60 miles an hour until 3 a.m. And for moving on, that's the only watches, warnings, and advisories out around the state, nothing out west. And for satellite imagery, you can see that storm coming into the Gulf of Alaska, pushing eastward there, good slug of moisture with that, pushing into the Panhandle and North Gulf Coast, spilling back in over south central Alaska, but not much in the way of precipitation, mostly along the North Gulf Coast. A little bit up into Prince William Sound, and moisture trying to work into the Copper River Basin or eastern Copper River Basin there. Otherwise, nice day up north of the Alaska Range, and break coming in over the southwest interior, Bristol Bay, eastern Bering Sea. That ahead of that next system pushing in, you can see clouds driving eastward there, good southwest jet along and just south of the Aleutians. And that pushing that next storm quite rapidly eastward brought pretty strong winds gusting close to 70 miles an hour for peak wind gusts at Adak, about half an inch of rain falling there. Otherwise, so far on the North Gulf Coast, the Yakutat's picked up about just under half an inch of precipitation, one of the heavier amounts there. And some light rain extending all the way back to Kodiak, even with the west-northwest wind there gusting close to 40 miles an hour, carrying light rain. And winds gusting up 30 to 40 miles an hour along the capes of the Panhandle currently, but all those winds going up as I speak by the minute there, and expecting peak wind gusts of, as I mentioned, around 60 miles an hour in some areas. Otherwise, some loose clouds up over the Bering Strait down to St. Lawrence Island, and lower clouds over the North Slope, Brooks Range, on out to the Arctic coast. A little bit of flurry activity, but nothing very significant there. Temperatures in the upper 20s. And again, that break over the southwest interior, so that low really weakens, kind of a remnant trough there, low lifting northward there, associated with those clouds, scattered clouds over the northern Bering and Norton Sound. But that band extending across the Yukon River, down across northern Kuskokwim Valley into the Alaska Range, linking up with the Gulf of Alaska moisture. That'll continue to kick off some light snow shower activity into tonight. Currently on the map, the front pressing in, tightening the gradient up over the eastern Gulf and off the North Gulf Coast. System out west driving eastward there. See the break in the ridging over the Pribilofs, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. Winds coming down after gusting around 50 miles an hour to the west-northwest over the Alaska Peninsula earlier today. But that currently coming down as that ridge moves in, everything moving from west to east. Tonight, winds will pick up, rain will pick up again for the Alaska Peninsula. Definitely the Pribilofs, eastern Aleutians become showery but quite windy along and just north of the western central Aleutians. Weakening low along the Yukon Delta coast keeps chance of rain or snow showers there depending on your elevation. In latitude tonight, probably mostly in the form of snow for the Seward Peninsula up to around Shishmaref. Kind of a mix there for St. Lawrence Island. Could go either way. Weak trough, weakening trough. northern Kuskokwim Valley into the western Alaska Range. That'll be light, whatever does fall. And then increasing snow and moisture over the southeast interior there. And then the high wind warning tonight, gusting 60 miles an hour in advance of that front with rain heavy at times. Same thing for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Look for a good solid rain situation for Yakutat here tonight. And then for Tuesday, another front develops. Southwest flow, low pressure still off the coast. The original one weakens, moves into western Canada. Another front brings another round of heavy wind and rain, mostly over the northern panhandle. Not quite as strong as one coming in tonight. And that system driving eastward brings rain into Kodiak Island. Windy, wet conditions, southeast Bering Sea, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. Rain or snow showers, a trough St. Lawrence Island into the Yukon Delta, Norton Sound, Seward Peninsula. Basically dry. Could see some sun, south central Alaska, Iliamna Lake area, and up into the central interior. Flurries along the Arctic coast, north slope continue both tomorrow and Wednesday up there, with breezy east to northeast winds. Nothing too strong though. And yet another front, southwest flow. Wet weather pattern continues for the panhandle. Look for more rain, possibly heavy at times, and gusty winds increase again. Small craft advisories. This system not as strong as the previous one coming in tonight, or about probably like the one tomorrow, maybe a tad stronger than the one that swings in tomorrow. Otherwise, a weaker system coming into the western Bering Sea. A couple of troughs keep it unsettled over the eastern Bering from the Strait all the way down to the Alaska Peninsula. Lows tonight, 40s for the panhandle, or mild southwest flow, gusty winds, rain. Near 40 Kodiak Island, otherwise in the 30s, exception being the Copper River Basin, the upper 20s, northern Kuskokwim Valley. Highs tomorrow, upper 30s Kuskokwim Valley, and near 40 for the Copper River Basin, otherwise 45 to 50 elsewhere. And the lows following morning into the 20s. A little more widespread now, lower 30s, upper 20s, lower 30s, Kenai Peninsula, near freezing along the coast, Valdez, forecast low 32 in the 40s for the Kodiak Island area and the Panhandle, mid-20s, northern Kuskokwim Valley. And the highs on Wednesday afternoon, near 40, Copper River Basin, mid-30s for the Kuskokwim Valley areas west of the Alaska Range, 40 to 45, south central Alaska, upper 40s around Homer, near 50 for Kodiak, and 48 to 51 for the southeast coast. Lows 5 to 15 for the North Slope and Arctic coast into the Brooks Range, otherwise 15 to 25 along the Arctic coast, and 20s for the Tanana Valley, lower 30s out toward the Bering Sea. And then highs tomorrow near 30 or 25 to 30, North Slope Arctic coast, near 20 to 25 for the Brooks Range, and 30 to 35 or in the mid-30s for the Tanana Valley. Rising above freezing most everywhere, though, over the eastern interior areas a little bit there. And then back down into the 20s, single numbers, 5 to 15 for the Brooks Range, milder out toward the Arctic coast, and upper 20s for the Seward Peninsula, followed by highs, 30 to 35 south of the Brooks Range, below freezing from the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast. And out in the southwest, lows tonight, upper 30s for the Pribilofs, otherwise mid-40s for the Aleutians, lower 30s along the southwest coast. Highs 45 to 50, near 40 on the southwest coast, followed by lows, upper 30s to lower 40s, and then highs Wednesday afternoon, near 40 along the southwest coast, and 45 to 50 for the Alaska Peninsula, and the Aleutians, lower 40s for the Pribilof.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather, Tuesday morning. Marginal VFR from the Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast with IFR right off the west central coast there. And then IFR, northern Seward Peninsula through the Strait to western St. Lawrence Island. Big area of IFR there over the central Bering Sea, Pribilofs, on down to the Alaska Peninsula. Eastern Aleutians becoming marginal for Adak and Atka, extending to probably the Komodorskis. VFR, Kodiak Island, Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula. Actually all south central Alaska, and then that expands as you get across the Alaska Range there. Pretty good area VFR, eastern and northeast interior. IFR, eastern North Gulf Coast and across Lincoln Glacier Bay. More IFR over the southern Panhandle. And for the afternoon, conditions down that way become a little more IFR-ish with Prince of Wales Island marginal. Patch of IFR, eastern North Gulf Coast, and IFR more widespread over the upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country into the eastern Alaska Range. Still a zone of VFR, Cook Inlet northward, and again much more expansive along the Brooks Range, even into the North Slope, marginal VFR Arctic coast. IFR, Seward Peninsula, especially the Bering Strait coastal areas there at St. Lawrence Island. Pribilofs IFR, southeast Bering covered with IFR into Bristol Bay and southern Kodiak Island. And marginal VFR, some improvement there around Adak and Atka, could be at least a period of VFR sliding through. And for Wednesday morning, IFR, Arctic coast, marginal VFR, north slope to the crest of the Brooks Range. South of the mountains, though, we got VFR, west central interior, good portion of the central Yukon River Valley, on down again into the Susitna Valley, Madanuska Valley, northern Cook Inlet, IFR, Kamishak Bay, Fognak Island, Bristol Bay, southeast Bering, and kind of a mix there, IFR, eastern North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, Valdez, southern into the Coast Range, southern Copper River Basin, Lincoln Glacier Bay, IFR along the central and south coast of the Panhandle, otherwise marginal VFR for the Bering Sea. And then for the afternoon, marginal VFR Bering Sea, a lot less IFR out that way. IFR into Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Bay, southwest interior. Looks like Kuskokwim Valley will be down with IFR. Into Cook Inlet now, IFR pushing in, and marginal VFR, Copper River Basin, Madanuska Valley, Susitna Valley, up into the Tanana Valley, IFR over the Yukon Flats, marginal VFR for the Arctic coast and North Slope, and the Panhandle still looking down with IFR flying conditions, some marginal VFR though showing up along the coast. And for passes, Anatuvik looking good tomorrow with VFR, same forecast for Adigan. Very nice up that way. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, also VFR, flying either approach, rainy, marginal becoming VFR. Could be VFR the entire day though, windy VFR. And Isabel though into the IFR, as well as Mentasta, that'll be on the northern entrance, otherwise marginal for Mentasta. And for Tanita, VFR. Portage, VFR, with lowering conditions on the eastern entrance throughout the afternoon becoming marginal. Probably won't be IFR, but be trending that direction. Again on the Portage side, or not the Portage side, the Whittier side. Chilkoot and White, IFR. Freezing levels, quite a gradient there across southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians, 2 to 12,000 feet. Also over the Panhandle, 2 to 8,000 feet, 8,000 down over the Queen Charlottes, 2,000 along the North Gulf Coast. Surface freezing levels still up into the Bering Strait, not quite as far north as it is today. And for icing, areas of considerable moderate rime or mixed icing pushing in across the Panhandle with lighter icing threats up over the southeast interior. Just a threat up there on the eastern Arctic coast, and some icing of the mostly isolated moderate rime variety there for the southwest coast. Togiak Bay could be maybe considerable moderate, otherwise lighter for the Alaska Peninsula. And for the jet stream, strong westerlies, 100 to 25 to 155 knots along and just south of the Aleutians there. Otherwise lighter, much lighter up over the interior. General trough of low pressure, several weak centers, also at 9,000 feet. Strongest winds south of the Aleutians, 50 knots across the northern Panhandle. And for 3,000 feet, 30 to 45 knots across the Alaska Peninsula, 55 knots there coming across the east central Aleutians, and 50 knots off the north coast of the Panhandle. Northerlies over the central Bering Sea up to 40 knots. Turbulence, widespread moderate chop, especially for small aircraft, eastern North Gulf Coast, all of the Panhandle, eastern Arctic coast, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, Fox Islands, Adak and Atka, just west of the Pribilofs. After the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Can be many miles long, from 1 to 100 feet high, traveling at 400 miles per hour. This ocean monster is known as a tsunami, and it can wreak havoc on coastal populations and landscapes. A tsunami is a series of ocean waves caused by any large and sudden disturbance of the sea surface. Tsunamis can be generated by landslides, volcanic eruptions, or even meteorite impacts in the ocean, but they are most often caused by an earthquake where there's a sudden displacement of the ocean floor. When that happens, there's a transfer of energy from the sea floor to the ocean, causing waves on the surface to radiate outward in all directions. In deep waters, these waves may not even be detectable. But when the tsunami enters shallower waters, the wave speed slows and its height increases. The water along the coast may recede noticeably. A large wall of turbulent water, called a bore, may also form. When the tsunami hits, It may come ashore like a fast-rising flood and strike with devastating force. The series of waves may continue for hours. The first one may not be the last or the largest. For your safety, know the potential warning signs of an incoming tsunami. A strong earthquake that causes difficulty standing. A rapid rise or fall of the water along the coast. A loud ocean roar. When you're in a coastal area, it's important to keep alert for messages from local officials, such as lifeguards, police, the U.S. Tsunami Warning Centers, and NOAA All Hazards Radio. If you find yourself in a location of a tsunami strike, here's what you need to do to stay safe. Keep calm. Walk or run to higher ground, 100 feet above sea level or 1 mile inland. Do not drive. Keep roads open for emergency vehicles. If you cannot move to higher ground, use the stairs to get to the 3rd floor or higher in a sturdy building. Follow all instructions from local officials and stay out of coastal areas until authorities issue an all clear. Tsunamis can strike any coastline in the world and can affect locations thousands of miles away from where they formed. They may be uncommon, but the devastation they cause makes them a deadly force in nature. For more information on tsunamis, go to the following sites.
Tsunami, a killer wave, speeding across the ocean at 400 miles an hour. It smashes into land, destroying everything in its path. Tsunamis do not have a season, but they can strike any coast at any time. If one forms close to the shore, the shaking of the earth and a loud roar may warn of its approach. But when a tsunami forms across the ocean, it can take hours to reach the shore, enough time to warn people to move to higher land. Over the past 20 years, NOAA has developed DART, a real-time monitoring system that provides data for forecasting tsunamis. The DART systems have been deployed in earthquake-prone areas throughout the ocean, including the Pacific and Indian basins. A DART system combines a surface buoy and a sensor on the ocean floor. This sensor detects changes in water pressure and seismic activity and transmits the data back to the surface. If these changes indicate a tsunami may form, the buoy signals an alert via satellite to the tsunami warning centers in Alaska and Hawaii. Back at the centers, scientists plug the data into pre-existing models. These models predict the height, the arrival time, and the coastal locations that the tsunami will hit. Watches and warnings are issued to the affected communities so preparations can begin. Today, 47 DART stations are positioned all around the world, ready to detect and warn coastal communities about the next potential tsunami. With the DART system and tsunami warning centers in place, we are now better prepared to predict a killer wave before it strikes.
December 26, 2004. What began as an undersea earthquake in the Indian Ocean ended as the most deadly tsunami in recorded history, with nearly 240,000 lives lost. This was a devastating wake-up call to coastal communities and tsunami research. Prior to this event, only 6 of NOAA's Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunami, or DART, buoys were in place. Scientists could only predict tsunami arrival times, not flood potential. and there was not a global tsunami warning system. Today, 10 years later, we can tell a different story. U.S. and international coastlines are far better prepared for such a catastrophe, thanks in large part to research and technology developed at the NOAA Center for Tsunami Research at Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory. NOAA's DART array is now complete, with 39 buoys operated by the National Weather Service's National Data Buoy Center. Along with 21 international buoys, this array can measure a tsunami wave as small as 1 centimeter in the open ocean and provide these data in real time to forecast when a tsunami may hit the coast and how much flooding there will be. NOAA scientists and engineers are currently testing the 4th-generation DART buoy that will be able to measure local tsunamis as well as distant ones. Flooding forecast models incorporate local topography and historical tsunami data in order to more accurately predict exactly how a tsunami might behave when it reaches shore. NOAA has 75 site-specific models that can provide high-resolution flooding forecasts for effective response and mitigation during a tsunami event. NOAA has gathered data from every tsunami since 2004 to improve its forecast models. Today, it operates the world's only real-time tsunami flooding forecast system using DART data to accurately compute flooding forecasts. The NOAA Tsunami Warning Centers make tsunami data available on the internet and issue advisories, watches, and warnings through the Emergency Alert System and via NOAA weather radios. While it is impossible to prevent a tsunami, we are now much better prepared to detect them and predict their paths and impacts, so those in coastal communities can take the steps necessary to safely protect themselves.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Sea ice analysis from October 9th, 2 days ago, looking something like this, and then next one here showing today's sea ice analysis, and you can kind of see how everything shifts to the south a little bit there, especially, well, across the entire ice field there, new ice forming and expanding southward, and thinner ice getting very close to Kaktovik there on the eastern Arctic coast. Let me back that up one more time. And there it was on the 9th, and then here we are on the 11th, and the ice inside the Berry Islands a little bit more widespread, but not a whole lot different, and even on the west side, not much of a change there. And pattern will continue probably for next 4 or 5 days. Gradual southward movement of the ice edge. And for the coastal water forecast, small craft advisories on the south coast of the Panhandle, west-southwest, 25 to 30 knots. Gale warnings on the north coast for 35-knot winds, seas just under 20 feet. Gale warnings also for Lynn Canal, southeast 35 knots, south 30 for Stevens Passage, Clarence Strait, southeast at 20. And for the outlook on Wednesday, 30-knot south winds for Clarence Strait, while Stevens Passage will be 10 knots lighter at 20, still from the south, seas 5 feet. And small craft advisories for Lynn Canal, southeast 25 knots. Small craft advisories all along the coast. For the south coast, the direction will be from the southwest, 25 to 30 knots. South-southwest, 25 to 30 knots. On the north coast, seas under 15 feet. Prince William Sound tomorrow, northwesterlies, 20 knots, seas 4 feet. And small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast, north to northwest winds 25 to 30 knots. Gale warnings out for Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands. West winds 35 knots, 20 knots out of the west for Southern Cook Inlet, light and variable north of the Forelands. For Wednesday, Cook Inlet, north winds 10 knots. Prince William Sound, north winds 10 knots. Kamishak Bay and the western North Gulf Coast, northwest winds 15 knots. Eastern North Gulf Coast, northwest at 20, seas at about 10 feet. And the Barren Islands looking at westerlies at 20 knots. Kodiak Island, gale warnings, westerlies 30 to 35 knots, seas up to 16 feet. And gale warnings for the Alaska Peninsula, southwest winds 30 to 35 knots, Pacific side seas 17 feet, Bering Sea side 11 feet. Small craft advisories for Bristol Bay, south winds 25 knots. And for Wednesday, Gale warnings continue. Alaska Peninsula, west-northwest, 30-35 knots, 35-knot winds actually, with gale warnings from Cape Sarachev all the way up to Sitkinak, out of the west 35 knots, and 20 to 30 knot westerlies for Kodiak Island, northwest at 30 for Bristol Bay. And for the Fox Islands, gale warnings, southwest 35 to 40 knots, Adak-Anatka. Gale warnings, west-southwest 35 to 40 knots, Sam Chitka Island. Looking at gales also, westerlies 40 knots, and then small craft advisories, Kiska to Shimia, northwest winds at 30 knots. And southwest 30 knot winds from Shimia to Amchitka for the day Wednesday, and westerlies 30-35 knots, Adak-Anatka. Fox Island, small craft advisories, west winds at 30 knots, seas 13 to 16 feet. And for the Kuskokwim Delta Coast, small craft advisories, east winds 25 knots, swinging around to the west at 25 for the Pribilofs, north 25 St. Matthew Island, then 15 knot winds from the north and northeast for St. Lawrence Island and the Yukon Delta Coast. And the outlook for Wednesday, southwest coast, small craft advisories, northwest 25 to 30 knots, strongest south of Nunavut Island, with seas highest also at 12 feet, west 30 knots. Just under gale force of the Pribilofs, 13-foot seas, northwest 25 St. Matthew Island, and north at 20 for St. Lawrence Island, Norton Sound, northeast at 10. And for the Arctic coast tomorrow, east winds 25 knots, 7 to 9-foot seas, 15-knot winds from Wales to Cape Thompson out of the northeast. And that continues on Wednesday, Wales to Cape Thompson, northeast at 15 knots. Otherwise, small craft advisories continue for the Arctic coast for east winds, 25 to 30 knots, seas right around 10 feet. For tonight, look for flurries up there with clouds, maybe some fog along the Arctic coast and locally into the North Slope. Mounts will be light, whatever falls. Dry over the interior, heavy wind and rain, high wind warnings for Sitka and Prince of Wales Island, 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts tonight. And heavy wind and rain also moving into the Alaska Peninsula at the Pribilofs. A break comes across Bristol Bay and Kodiak Island. And for tomorrow, another front develops and moves another round of gusty winds and rain into mainly the northern panhandle. Rain and breezy conditions Kodiak Island, and windy with numerous showers over the southeast Bering Aleutians, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. And the outlook for Wednesday, another storm keeps it wet and windy over the panhandle.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.